on Behavioral Finance and You by Ethan Marcano. Part 1: How Companies Market to You. What companies are trying to make you feel. Marketers use psychological techniques to manipulate you into buying their product. They deliberately use specific colors, sounds, and symbols to get you to buy their goods. Here's a classic case. Ron Popeil. Ron Popeil is considered the king of infomercials. He was a marketer and he sold products on television for cheap prices. However, his presentation made it so he could sell these cheap items quickly and make the customer feel as if they were getting a great deal. For example, he sold a rotisserie chicken maker, which was nothing more than a simple skewer, making upwards of $1 million by emphasizing its cheapness and its efficiency. And here's the infomercial for one of his products, the Pocket Fisherman. And in this infomercial, he shows off its efficiency, being able to fit it in your pocket and travel around with it, and also shows off its cheap price, hence only $19.95. It's important to note that marketers keep products below a certain price range because it makes you want to buy it more. Products are often... Alright, the presentation versus the product. Products are often photoshopped in commercials, meant to make it look more appealing and beautiful, so you can go over to the restaurant or go over to the store and buy it and eat it. It's especially prevalent in food products and restaurant commercials. And so let's take a look at this McDonald's product comparison. And here it compares the commercials. Let's say a Big Mac, how bright and beautiful it looks, and then the reality where it's more plain and flat and it's just not as appealing to look at. And so McDonald's does this so you want to go over to McDonald's and eat their food. It's just another way for them to market their products to you. Advertisers also use human appeals to appeal to the consumer. Humans by nature are attracted to buy products with attractive people attached to these products. They're also more likely to trust a kind face, one face that gives familiarity and a sense of safeness and friendliness along with it. For this reason, actors involved in advertising are often attractive people who look friendly and familiar. Another technique is mass marketing. A company engages in a mass campaign to appeal to a wide base of consumers from many diverse backgrounds, ensuring they get customers among a wide range of people. Take Walmart, for example. Walmart appeals to not to a specific group, but rather a whole town. So, and every Walmart is meant to feel familiar and safe in each town. Here, another type of marketing is evangelism marketing, where companies use aggressive marketing to put yourself in their identity. And by this, I mean they make you want to identify with them, to take pride in you using their product. For example, the famous Coke versus Pepsi debate. Some people take pride in what they drink and they identify with that product. So what does this have to do with you as the consumer? Well, it's important for you to remember that you are being targeted by advertisers at all times. When you go on social media, advertisers often pay for ads either by celebrities or by their own accounts, and you are often based on your information, you're often targeted for specific ads. You see advertisements on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and you see them on television. You're constantly under a barrage of information by companies that want you to consume their products. And so, what are you going to do about it? Well, first, we must learn what behavioral finance is and how we can use it to our benefit to improve on how we pick up on marketing techniques and how we can avoid these techniques and save money responsible. Let's go back to capitalism. Um, Capitalism is the current system where people own private businesses and use them to sell goods and services. And this system is fairly recent, came about in the last 300 years, and it started with a man named Adam Smith. And Adam Smith was an economist who wrote an explanation on why people should own property and why they should sell that property. And he wrote an explanation on human behavior in regards to this property in his work, Theory of Moral Sentiments. And so, over time, economic experts looked into the idea of a rational man. And later on, during the late 1800s, psychology as a field developed, and these psychological experts realized that it is very hard for a man to be completely rational at all times. Now let's look at economic theories. The neoclassical school, which is the most common school in the Western world today, it's based on whole market trends, and the psychology of behavioral finance is considered unnecessary, and it also follows the fundamental theorem of finance. What is the fundamental theorem of finance? Well, it calls for 3 points. No arbitrage, which means the differing of market prices and the exploitation of those markets, which, for example, would be a oil company. An oil company would be selling in the US instead of, let's say, Japan, because the US prices are cheaper and more people are willing to buy them, which creates an unfair precedent for Japan. And the second point is the existence of a positive linear pricing rules that prices all assets, which is your basic values of inflation and market demand. And in the third point is the existence of an optimal demand for some agent who prefers more to less. This is your average consumer, and if the theory calls for that, there will always be a consumer that wants to, consume more. And this theory can be used by both the neoclassical and behavioral school, and I will now explain the behavioral school. The behavioral theory is rational, where it considers that most consumers act under a rational mindset, but it still allows for individual sentiment and ideas, meaning that each economic actor has their own plan, has their own ideals in mind when they consume or produce. And it's a very grounded theory. It strives for congruence with reality, generality, and tractability, meaning that it can be boiled down to into information easily, as stated in Advances in Behavioral Economics by Colin F. Kammerer, a noted professor. Another main part of behavioral finance is that we analyze consumer behavior, and according to Odom, who wrote Prospect Theory and Risky Choice in an E-commerce Setting, Evidence of a Framing Effect, the consumer has 7 main concerns: the security of the transaction, whether they feel safe while buying the product, privacy of their information, their concerns on whether their information is being sold or pirated in some way, legitimacy of the seller, like how someone is much more likely to buy from Walmart and then from some small shop that they've never heard of, the quality of the product or service. You know, the consumers always want a high quality product for their needs. Documentation adequacy, that all the documents are in order, that consumers have everything in place, price fairness, whether consumers want a good deal or not, and customer service availability, whether the customer service acts fairly and nicely to them. As we all know, all 7 of these can't really be achieved in a situation, and thus we have to look to Herbert Simon, a noted psychologist and economist, where he argued that any new theories, including behavioral economics, stemmed from bounded rationality. And bounded rationality is the limitation of available information, which leads to suboptimal decisions, especially concerning economics, especially concerning money. And with this, we know that the average human is unrational, that they can't make perfect decisions. And this is where behavioral finance really shines, because we need to understand how the economy works, and we understand that each person has their own bias. Because of their irrationality, humans are a very biased people. Here's one such bias, hindsight bias, which creates an error because people know the result of an event and after it happens and are confident that they could have predicted it. This leads to investors fitting the strategy to the result and distorting the prices, which creates errors, which creates bad times for everyone involved. And people also have, ideals based on race, gender, and age. For example, they may perceive an older man more domineering, more in control, and might be intimidated, especially compared to a young woman. And people are more likely to buy domestically to support their country than from abroad. This brings us to our final part, where we learn how to save money. And this all has to do with recognizing the techniques that the companies use on you, and it's a matter of learning self-control and budgeting yourself in order to save money. Now, a way to save is to not fall for scams or tricks. Know what you're spending your money on, and ask yourself, am I really getting something valuable after this? Am I gaining any kind of pleasure or enjoyment out of this product or service that I'm getting? An unexpected one would be religion. Religions are a big moral arbiter in America and in much of the world. And they often emphasize going without or saving funds, often for a religious goal, and they emphasize morality and staying safe, and emphasize family. And by taking up religion, you can learn not to be so materialistic, and you can learn to save your money and spend it for another time, or spend it on your family. Religion's a form of risk management, it reduces the feeling of risk and increases your safety. And since most religions provide a guideline for you to follow, it minimizes that risk. And these moral statements suggest that the right behavior creates good rewards. This concept is explored in Larry Williams' book Marketplace of the Gods, How Economics Explain Religion, and goes into a massive amount of how society is developed by religious influence on economics and vice versa. Another good way for you to save money is to remember to don't always buy the new product. It's okay to save and reuse what you already have. For example, what's a common theme in today's society is that people often buy new phones every year after it comes out. For example, the new iPhone 6, 7, and then people throw away their old phones. Well, if you want to save your money, you can just keep using your old phone unless it can no longer be used, and then that's okay. But by saving your money, you've shown yourself to be more responsible, and you're more aware of what companies do to market to you. And in fact, this very PowerPoint / lecture was designed to be psychologically attractive. It's meant to be 18 minutes, and this format's been used in TED Talks, and it keeps the listener engaged while also providing enough information for the listener to process. And it looks like we've reached our end, and I would like to thank you, the listener, for accompanying me on this trip, and I hope this was a nice way for you to learn more about economics and how to save money while practicing economics as well. The lecture can be found on YouTube on my account. It is called Behavioral Economics and You, and the PowerPoint can be found as well. Thank you and goodbye.